Welcome to an episode of Christian Answers. My name is Pastor Jeff Short, and today we're going to be talking about Jaelene Hinkle again. If you remember a few years ago, I was talking about this woman who was a pro soccer, women's soccer player, and she was rejected from the U.S. women's team because of her Christian convictions. Her belief, her biblical belief that marriage is between a man and a woman, that simple Christian belief cost her a spot on the women's soccer team, the women's national team. Even though Jaelene Hinkle is one of the best soccer players in the country, even though she's a standout player, and in her specific position, she is one of the top 3 players in the nation, so say the experts in women's soccer. Still, she was not allowed to go on the women's national team. And the reason she wasn't allowed to be on the women's national team is because of statements that she's made pertaining to biblical marriage and her opposition to this whole unique, novel idea that man and woman can be married. In other words, she opposes, as all good Christians do, so-called gay marriage. And because of that, she is persecuted for her faith. She is actually shut out of women's soccer at the top level, the national team level, because, as we all know now, many of the higher-ups in the Women's Soccer League are lesbians, and some of the players, the star players on the national team, are lesbians who have actually involved themselves in a so-called lesbian marriage. And so because of those political reasons, because of those immoral activities on the part of women's soccer superstars and executives, and even the coach, the women's coach, named Jill Ellis. She is a lesbian, and she is in one of these same-sex relationships, so-called married to some other woman. And all of that political turmoil has caused Jaelene Hinkle, this Christian, 26-year-old Christian woman, to be rejected by the soccer league. Now, in a recent article by Travis Yosting, there is the headline, "Given recent U.S. women's national team struggles, should Jill Ellis," that's the lesbian coach, "consider bringing back Jaelene Hinkle?" So last year, Jaelene Hinkle was given this sort of 5-day trial to be on the women's team, and mysteriously she was rejected, sent back home packing. And many people thought, and most people thought, that it was because of her views on marriage. And then the year before, Jaelene Hinkle said that she could not and would not play for the women's national team if she were forced to wear this rainbow lesbian LGBT jersey, which the women's national team had contracted to wear during, I think, Gay Pride Month or Gay Pride Week or some LGBT cause week. And they wanted all the players on the national women's team, soccer team, to wear the rainbow jersey that represented the so-called LGBTQ cause. And Jaelene said, as a Christian, I'm not going to do it. I can't do that. That is against my biblical beliefs. God would not be pleased. And I simply would rather not play on the team than to do something that would displease God. Sort of like the Eric Liddell in the movie Chariots of Fire way back a few decades ago, where he said, no, I'm not going to violate my conscience and my faith in God in order to compete in the Olympics if they're going to make me do something that I don't feel God wants me to do. Well, the same way with Jaelene Hinkle. She is not going to play on the women's national team if they're going to force the players to represent on their jerseys the gay rainbow flag, Gay Pride Month flag. She's not going to do it, and I don't blame her. I don't think any employer should force any of their employees to promote some cause that is immoral and disgusting and despicable. I don't think they should be allowed to do that. And I think Jaelene could actually have filed suit against them and said, look, this violates my religious beliefs. This violates my conscience. This goes against my moral values. I'm not going to do it. And I think she would have had a good case. But instead, she bowed out gracefully. That was 2017. Last year, 2018, she got called up again, tried out for the team 5 days, then was cut, mysteriously cut. And again, who is the coach? Lesbian Jill Ellis, the woman who is in a same-sex relationship, mysteriously cut Jaelene Hinkle. And most people, like I said before, believes that it was for political purposes. So here again, we're 2019, another U.S. women's national team summer coming up, and the question emerges once again. Should Jill Ellis, the lesbian women's national team coach, consider bringing back Jaelene Hinkle, the Christian who believes in biblical marriage? And it's an interesting article, so let me read some of it and make a comment. It says, the U.S. needs to bolster its fullbacks, but is Hinkle the answer given her religious views? So they're trying to frame this whole question as Jaelene Hinkle has these strange religious views. They're not strange. These are views that are mainstream Christian. These are views that are mainstream Western civilization. For 2,000 years, mainstream Western and Christian civilization has deemed homosexuality as a sin. It's a depravity. It's an abnormality. It's not something you want to encourage. It's something you want to discourage. It's not approved in the Bible. It's disapproved in the Bible. It's not approved by the church. It's disapproved by the church, and so on. And so Western and Christian values have held steady for nearly 2,000 years. And this religious believer, Jaelene Hinkle, is simply holding those views. And yet, her views are framed in such a way as she's the strange one. She's the newcomer trying to introduce these wacky and wild views on marriage as a man and a woman, that kind of a thing. You can see this false narrative being spun here, and it's really, really deceitful the way this author, Travis Yosting, on March 7th, 2019, spun this whole situation, and we'll get into this more. He says in his opening sentence, at the highest level of sport, how much does chemistry matter? Do athletes need to have the full trust and respect of teammates to perform at the best of their abilities? Or can professionals put aside personal matters for the sake of the team? Can you invite a player onto the team who has actively demonized players and coaches on said team? Well, first of all, Jaelene Hinkle has not demonized the LGBT so-called community. She has simply said she doesn't want to wear the gay rainbow pride emblem on her jersey because that violates her own spiritual and moral convictions, the same moral and spiritual convictions that Christians have always held and that Western civilization has held for thousands of years. So she's just simply saying, no, I don't want to go along with this new immoral revolution that's sweeping up society. And now she's being labeled as demonizing the players and coaches on her team who are lesbian and gay and bisexual or whatever they happen to, whatever perversity they happen to be engaged in. She's being called someone who demonizes those people. She hasn't said they're demonic. She didn't say they're of the devil. She didn't come after them. She just said, I don't want to wear the gay pride jersey, and I don't condone gay marriage. That's all she said. That's her personal religious convictions. Now, the other the controversy is not about her demonizing these players. It's just simply her ability to hold these views and not bother people. It seems like the narrative is being spun that she's attacking other people. She's not. She just simply says, I don't want to promote your cause. The article goes on. These are the questions Jill Ellis must ask in the lead up to the World Cup this summer. After the U.S. women's national team struggled to a second-place finish in She Believes Cup in early March, it becomes clear the defending champions have some work to do before June. So the women's team is struggling right now. They came in second in March. I recently wrote about the 5 ways Ellis could improve the team before the Women's Cup. I did not consider for one moment Jaelene Hinkle. I doubt Ellis has either, but should she? That's what the author is saying. The reason to not include Hinkle are complicated and almost entirely non-football related. That's what I've been saying for a couple years now. All of this whole controversy is totally non-football related. There is a section of U.S. fans who would love to see one of the best left backs in the national women's team, especially based on these responses to my aforementioned story. And it shows a number of different Facebook tweets, entries that say she should be on the team. Now, she plays left back, and it seems to be that the team really needs left backs, but because of political, social reasons, she's not on the team. Would it make sense to bring Hinkle into the team knowing her past? In other words, so they're framing it like it's her fault, she's the problem, she has a problematic past, and it's not the case at all. She simply is a Christian who wants to live her Christian life. She doesn't want to attack anyone. She doesn't want to embarrass anyone. She doesn't want to be antagonistic to anyone. She respects all people. She just doesn't want to promote the LGBT cause. That's all. Okay, who is Jaelene Hinkle? Jaelene Hinkle is a 25-year-old left back. That's her position on soccer. She'll be 26 by the time the Women's Cup kicks off, who plays for the North Carolina Courage, a Denver native who played college ball at Texas Tech. She's got 8 caps with the U.S. women's national team and is about to start her 5th season in the National Women's Soccer League. In 2017, she denied a U.S. women's national team call-up for what she stated at the time were personal reasons. It was later revealed these personal reasons were not wanting to play in LGBT Pride Month jerseys because of her religious views. That's what I was talking about before. She was called up in 2017, but when she realized that she would be forced to wear a gay pride LGBT promoting jersey on the team, she quietly, and for personal reasons, she didn't even get into the reasons. She just said, I don't want to do that for personal reasons. So she didn't make it an issue. And then only later did it come out that it was because of the forced promotion of an immoral and perverted lifestyle that she said, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't feel comfortable doing that. And we can all understand why she would not want to do that. Who would want to promote something they don't believe in? In 2018, Hinkle was given another chance with the national team called in before the Tournament of Nations. She was cut from the roster 5 days later and not included in the Tournament of Nations team. Hinkle has been outspoken about her Christian faith, particularly when it comes to marriage rights, despite the fact that U.S. women national team coach and some of her teammates are married to women. In other words, some of these soccer women who are professional soccer women are lesbians, and they're involved in these immoral LGBT relationships, even so-called gay marriage. And Hinkle is a Christian. She's outspoken in her Christianity, and obviously there's a conflict there. And that conflict has led her to either not be on the team because she was forced to wear the jersey, or the coach not wanting her on the team because of her views. So the article goes on. Let's be clear here. Hinkle belongs to a group of Christians who want to deny human rights to a large portion of society. That's a lie. She belongs to Christianity that teaches that a marriage is between a man and a woman, and that there is no right for anyone on the planet Earth, there is no God-given right for anyone of the same sex to marry another member of the same sex. That's not a human right. That's not a God-given right. And so she believes what Christians have always believed, that would be wrong for society to allow that. And that is her conviction. That is my conviction. That is all biblical, Bible-believing Christians' convictions. It's not just a little group. It's not a little fringe group in Christianity like this article tries to express. It's actually mainstream Christianity. So they're trying to spin this narrative as if Hinkle is a part of this little fringe group, this extremist Christian group that doesn't believe in LGBTQ rights. And so that's the context for this. No, it's not. She is a part of mainstream Christianity. For 2,000 years, this is the teaching, and there's no good reason to change it. Okay, the article goes on. Before you sound off in Facebook comments, keep in mind that LGBTQ rights are not about politics. They're about human rights, just as the same as racial, gender, and religious discrimination. Well, that's not exactly true. This author would have to defend that statement, and he would have to ground these so-called LGBTQ rights in something. You just don't state that something is a right without having to defend it. So he would have to build his case that, for example, look at the acronym LGBTQ. He would have to defend the statement that a bisexual person has a right to marry a man and a woman. Or he would have to defend the statement that a transgender person has the right to enter into any bathroom that he wants or she wants. These are all things that have to be defended, and he can't do it. It's just a statement. He just makes a dogmatic statement and says, these are all human rights. Prove it. Prove it that they're human rights. They didn't come from God. So if they don't come from God, they're not true rights. He goes on, this isn't Colin Kaepernick taking the knee for racial equality. This is a player who chooses to deny a national team call-up because she doesn't believe in marriage equality. No, she doesn't believe in a woman marrying a woman and a man marrying a man. She believes in marriage equality. Any man can marry any woman, and any woman can marry any man. But two women cannot marry and call it marriage, and two men cannot marry and call it marriage, and that's just a category mistake. So she believes in marriage equality. She doesn't believe in gay marriage. And okay, he goes on, and did so while appearing on a national platform of a known racist and bigot Pat Robertson Christian Broadcasting Network. So the author is now trying to link her with someone he obviously hates, and that is Pat Robertson. And he's trying to say, see, she went on Christian Broadcasting Network, and so that makes her, whatever you think of Pat Robertson, so that's what you should think of her. And a lot of people hate Pat Robertson because he also defends the traditional marriage of the Bible. And so now they're trying to say, well, see, Jaelene Hinkle went on his television show, and so she's just like he is. And if you hate him, you need to hate her. That's what this man is trying to do, the link to two, instead of dealing with the situation of Jaelene Hinkle on its own. The situation is simply this. She didn't want to wear a gay pride uniform, and she refused to be on the team in 2017. In 2018, when they didn't force the players to wear the gay uniform, she said, great, I'm okay with being on the team. But then, that year, she got mysteriously cut by the lesbian coach. So everybody thinks that there was probably a political, social motivation for that. being cut. But the author says, but let's ignore the religious beliefs for a moment. Let's focus on soccer. Hinkle's courage coach and teammates all stand up and vouch for her. She's a legitimate talent in a position that the U.S. women's national team needs. Okay, so she greatly needed. She has this skill that she has, and the women's soccer needs her on the national team. There's no good soccer reason why she's not on there. The only reason she's not on there is because the LGBTQ movement hates her and doesn't want her representing the team because they think they own women's soccer. And I think they don't. And women need to stand up and say, look, LGBTQ cause does not own sports. Now, the author says, would Jaelene Hinkle improve the U.S. women's national team? From an on-field perspective, Hinkle would undoubtedly make the U.S. women's team better. If there were a video game in which you could just slot players in regardless of outside factors, Hinkle would be a no-brainer. Hinkle was voted to the National Women's Soccer League Team of the Week in the first 2 weeks of 2018. She finished with 4 assists, tied for 9th best in the league, the same as international stars like Sam Kerr and Marta. I guess those are women's soccer players, because I don't follow women's soccer, but maybe those are the players. Interestingly, Hinkle wasn't chosen to the Team of the Week after her interview detailing her reasons for turning down the 2017 U.S. Women's National Team call-up. So she wasn't giving that honor after she had an interview with Pat Robertson's broadcast network. Another political reason. But then again, she didn't supply any assist after July, so her production did dip. Hinkle has defensive, passing, vision, and speed. From a purely soccer-related standpoint, she's what you want in a left back, a position at which the U.S. women's national team has little depth. She's certainly among the top 3 at her position in this country. But, the author says, this isn't a video game. This is real-life locker room and where players must intimately interact with each other day after day. Chemistry isn't just a class you failed in high school. It's what often separates good teams from great teams. So in other words, he's saying, because this Christian believes Christian doctrine, that she might not have good chemistry with the lesbians on the team or the lesbian allies on the team. So you've got your lesbian coach, and then you have lesbian players, and then you have lesbian allies. And those people on the team might not have good chemistry with this Christian who believes that marriage is a man and a woman. They might feel uncomfortable. Well, whose fault is that? I mean, it's not hers. They need to just grow up and realize that they shouldn't expect everyone to believe like they do. It's really silly here. The article goes on. Should Jaelene Hinkle be given another chance? Regardless of whether or not you agree with Hinkle's beliefs, does Jaelene Hinkle deserve a chance to prove herself on the pitch? In the past, Hinkle has disparaged the LGBTQ community based on her religious beliefs. No, she hasn't. She hasn't disparaged the community. The community requires that you totally buy into and accept and promote their perversions, or else you're discriminating against them. And that's not what she was doing, and that's not what she wants to do. She hasn't disparaged them. She hasn't attacked them. But this LGBTQ community is so sensitive and so psychologically imbalanced that any hint of dissent from their cause, and they're all up in arms and they want to get rid of you. The U.S. government gives every right to make such statements, though arguably they are harmful to the LGBT community. They are not harmful to the LGBT community unless you consider psychological and emotional slights or disagreement emotionally harmful. I don't know. I mean, if you can stretch that definition of harmful to include anything that you don't want to hear, I guess, yeah, she could have done damage to the LGBT community simply by being a Christian, well, then that's pretty strange. The LGBT community has far higher suicide rates than the rest of the country. Well, whose fault is that? Is it Jaelene Hinkle's? No. Maybe it's their guilty conscience for violating a law that they know is there, even though they refuse to openly acknowledge it. God has given his law within each person made in the image of God, and when you violate it, you have a guilty conscience. Don't blame that on Christianity. Blame it on yourself for living contrary to God's laws. For the most part, one cannot be denied employment based on religious views. U.S. Soccer subsidizes U.S. women teams' players' salaries, but the national team isn't your typical day job. Players are chosen not just based on ability, but how they fit into the team, how they perform with their teammates. And so it talks about the chemistry. It talks about, would she be accepted on the team? What about all this? Is Jaelene Hinkle worth it, he asks. What would be the cost of bringing a player who disparaged the LGBT community? Again, that's a lie. She did not disparage the LGBT community. This oversensitive, guilt-ridden community is really hurting themselves by their lifestyle, but it isn't Jaelene and her simple Christian beliefs that's hurting them. So finally, the article concludes that it's an open question as to whether Jaelene Hinkle should or should not be on the team. He makes the case that in the end, it probably comes down to a personal choice. He says, if you share Hinkle's religious beliefs or want to win at all cost, you probably want her to be on the team. If you stand for human rights or believe that words have consequences, you probably don't want Hinkle anywhere near the United States national team. Okay, so the narrative is there. You can see it as plain as day. If you don't toe the whole LGBTQ line, you are hateful, hurtful, and you shouldn't be on the team. And that's where our country is right now. And so we need to pray for Jaelene Hinkle. She is definitely qualified to be on the women's national team. She's got the skill. She's got the talent. The women's national team needs her. And let's just pray that she doesn't cave in on her convictions, that she stands fast, and that she remains faithful to the Lord. And we need more people like her willing to take a stand and say marriage is a man and a woman, not a man and a man, not a woman and a woman. And we need more people like her. So let that stand that she's taking be an inspiration for all of us, and to go out and live for Jesus no matter what society throws at us. Well, I hope that's been helpful, and we'll see you back next week. God bless.